So welcome. This is our second coaching call. We're in module 2 of the Soul Delicious program. And I am really loving this whole program, the energy, what we're talking about. So I hope you're enjoying it as well. And today we have a fun activity. We have the integration guide. Like I just mentioned, I just put it in the chat. So if you don't have it yet, download it now. You can click that link, save it to your computer, and if you can, print it out. These links to Dropbox, they should be accessible. They should be accessible for everyone that views them, but occasionally, for whatever reason, sometimes it'll ask you, say that you need like permission to access it. If that ever happens, don't hesitate, just make that request to have permission, and then I'll let you have access. I don't know why that happens for some people and for others it doesn't. It seems to be very random and rare that happens. In any case, what we're going to be talking about tonight, if you checked that out, is moving from intolerance to acceptance and then on to nourishment. So in module 2 training on Monday, we talked a lot about the notion that when we're having cravings, when we're wanting something in this immediate sense, where we have to have it now, even if it doesn't come up as a craving, it might just be something you're already so attached to that it's just like part of your routine. And so there might not be a craving for it. But if it's something where it's like this immediate, you have to have it, and if it's not going to be part of your routine, then it creates upset, right? That's a sign of attachment. When that happens, often what we're going through is this intolerance to ourselves. It might be a way that we're feeling or a way that we're being, and we want to be a different way. We want to feel something different. And you could reframe this, and sometimes it's more of the reframe might resonate more. It might be more fitting if it's something that you're wanting to feel versus what you're avoiding feeling or what you're not okay with. But that's, in a way, we're kind of getting to the root cause, in a sense, of we're recognizing what we're wanting to feel, but it also is sugarcoating it in a way. And you might be able to come up with some instance where it's not that you're trying to avoid something, but by and large, I can speak from my experience and working with a lot of other people that it's something you're wanting to avoid or to not feel. That's why you're wanting to feel the other thing. You want to not feel the sadness, but you're not focused on that sadness that you might experience if you actually sat with it. What you're more focused is on wanting to feel good. And you might acknowledge that, like, this treat is going to make me feel good. This treat is going to make me feel more energized. What you're focused on is the positive rather than focusing on what you're moving away from, because it's more of that negative, right? We don't want to think about the negative. We don't want to think about what we're trying to avoid. That would defeat the purpose. But often it's what we're trying to avoid or what we want to escape from, refugee from, that is more powerful in our healing process, to acknowledge, to address, to give more time for reflection, contemplation, and to really be with that. Is everyone's screen blinking like mine is? Kind of glitchy, or is that just me? You're on mute, Lynn, if you want to unmute yourself. Do you see it too?
Yeah, I see it on your end. I see something blinking. I don't know what that is.
I see it on yours, not on the others.
Yeah, I don't see it on Lynn's.
My internet might not be as great, I guess.
It's not constant.
It's not constant, but it
No,
seems
it's not happening. It's not happening right now. It just happened a few times.
okay.
It seems to happen. I'm like thinking it happens when you're talking,
Maybe.
like right now it's not. I don't know. It's weird.
It might be happening more for me because if it's my internet and it's,
Yeah.
so you guys are only seeing like part of it. In any case, if it's not a big bother, we'll just work with it. It's something to figure out how I can test in the future. I'm not sure how I would address that, but in any case, so does everyone have the PDF, whether it's printed out or you have it on your device? Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the exercise here. The first step I want to walk you through, we talked about it a little bit, but I added in a piece here called True Hunger that I mentioned as, I'm going to sneeze, soul desires on Monday. But another way to think about it, because the soul desire is often a longer term desire, like it's something bigger. And it might be something that you already have to some extent. And it's just that it's an ongoing desire. Like you experience love and you want to continue experiencing love, right? It's a value. It's something that is ongoing. So that's never going to go away. Hunger might be, it might be a term that could resonate and help people address the issue more. So you kind of take which one resonates more with you, but it might give you a sense of it being more immediate, where it's not that immediate, like it needs to be filled sort of craving, where it's the ego thinking this is what the ego wants, but it's this yearning for something. It's this hunger, like a hunger for connection, right? And so you might feel connected generally in your life. And so that desire, that soul's desire is fulfilled to some extent, but that doesn't mean there's not still a hunger for it. And I have a mentor of my own. One of her things is to get hungry for life. She actually says, get horny for life. She uses both terms, but we need this hunger is very, very supportive to us creating a life we love, to finding fulfillment, to having the relationships that we appreciate and really enjoy being a part of, right? This hunger is really beneficial. And when we're just moving towards the food for that instant pleasure, right? Going with the ego, whatever it wants in the moment to avoid the thing, we're missing out on this big piece that our bodies or our mind and our emotion is trying to tell us. And so that's where it's like, wait a second, before you jump for the ice cream, Katie, let's take a step back and think about what you're really wanting. What are you wanting in this moment? Is it the sweetness from a dessert, or is it the sweet connection with something where you feel that genuine, connection? And so, like for me, that's clearly one of my things is wanting that connection and wanting like the sweetness that comes with that genuine connection. And it's easiest for me, what I'm noticing, and this is just kind of my first example of doing the homework, what we're going to be doing together. But let's say my preference is ice cream, right? Well, if I pause and think about what is really coming up for me, if I look deeper and not thinking about that ego desire, that's that immediate gratification that's going to go away within half an hour, right? Any pleasure from that's going to go away pretty quickly. So what is it that I really want to feel? I want to feel that love, that sweetness, like being held, almost comforted. And so that for me is connection. Now, one way that it was, if I really think about it and think about how could I get that connection, what is going to feel the most rewarding for me might be through someone else. It might be through a partner, right? Where someone else is giving me that, because then partly it's not me doing it, right? So it's like a little bit less work on my part. And partly it's because it's a connection with another being, right? Like in this case, it's a living being, an essence, a soul, and you can connect so much more when you're connecting with something so precious, so sacred. And so, and then there's a little bit, maybe you could say more excitement, because it's someone else, you don't know what's going to happen. So there's this like unknown aspect of it. But also this dependability. If it is a partner, there's a reliability there of, somewhat, you have an idea of what to expect, and it's going to be good generally, right? So that might feel like, and it might be just because of where I am in my life, but in a way that feels like a richer source of this feeling that I'm wanting, or the dopamine. But if I can't have that, what's another option? There are many other options, but one would be connecting with a higher power, connecting with that truth for me, whatever it looks like for anyone else, but connecting to a higher power, or connecting with nature, getting out in nature. It could be just connecting, it could be the most impactful of all, and possibly the hardest for many, is connecting with yourself, going inward and truly connecting with yourself, and feeling the genuine love and, honor for yourself, for your essence.
Mm.
And so that, if you're not used to doing that, that could feel really like not going to hit the spot. Right? Like if you think about food, it's like that hit the spot or that didn't, right? And the connecting with yourself is like, that's not going to do it. But the more you practice connecting with yourself, the more you realize it can hit the spot. It can be really meaningful. And like I don't know if it was on the call or in an email, I mentioned, maybe actually in the description for this guide, when we're connecting with ourselves in that way, and we're fulfilling a soul desire or that true hunger, it is so lasting. It offers this deep fulfillment and reward that is lasting, and it ripples out to every other area of your life. If it's truly nourishing, it's going to ripple out to multiple areas, and depending on how big, how long it lasts for, how long you continue practicing that nourishing behavior, it could ripple out to every single area of your life. So for me, that's just one example, but I would love to hear from you guys some examples you can think of. Before we do that though, let's actually go through this process. I have the 4 steps to move from that intolerance to nourishment. The first step being that we're noticing the intolerance and identifying the specific preference that you want, because one will help, both will be more helpful. If you can identify the preference, which will usually come up first, you've got this craving, so you recognize the preference first, and seeing it as a preference, right? Versus an addiction or an attachment, recognize it's just a preference. And then you can kind of work backwards. What's this preference going to bring me? And then it'll be an indicator of what you're escaping from. And you will likely be able to feel that, what you don't want to feel, if you let yourself have this pause and reflection. But both of those pieces together is going to make a difference, rather than just the one, because what we want to figure out is what you really want. And so if you can see what you're escaping and what you're going towards, then it'll help you see both of them. But after you notice that intolerance, it's essential that you take the pause, take some deep breaths, 3 deep breaths, because otherwise you'll go right into the craving. You can notice it without taking positive action. You could notice it and just say, screw it. I'm going to continue with what I want, what the ego wants, really. And if that ever happens, when that happens, it's okay. Like that, if you still recognize, do the first step of recognizing the intolerance and what your preference is, that in itself is a win, right? Just that awareness of practicing that. So even if you don't pause, or you pause and then you still take action on the ego desire, that awareness is still positive. Because we don't have, in this approach, we're not taking, we're not following strict rules of what we can and cannot do. Some people might, you might watch this program and it might be supplementing another program that you're doing where you do have bright lines or unambiguous lines like no sugar, oil, salt, right? SOS free. And when people do that, there's all sorts of ways they fall into that category. They might be 100%, and other people might have a very wishy-washy connection with that term. But in this approach, we're not talking about those guidelines, which means that there's a dance to be had here. There's this practice of doing something and getting better at it and not shaming ourselves for when we don't follow through completely, right? It's like the practice is the beauty. The practice is the journey. It's where all the growth happens. That's what we want, is a practice. And so it's this practice of taking these 4 steps. And wherever you get with them, each time is a win. Honestly, even if you remember the 4 steps, and for whatever reason, you don't even act on the first step alone, it is still a win, because it's just in your memory of coming up. And then the next time you can work on doing that first step, right? So one of the ways to help you practice this is to print it out and put it on your fridge, or put it somewhere at your desk or in your bedroom so that you do see it, because that's why I'm saying it's a win if you remember the steps, because it's going to be easy, or could be easy not to remember them at all. So I actually would suggest, even if this was a real challenge for someone, if they're dealing with a strong attachment, to printing out something or having a little business card, something that'll fit in your wallet, and just write down the 4 steps, right? So you can see it enough. But after you recognize the intolerance and identify the preference, take those deep breaths, then the next piece is accepting what is happening, right? Because that acceptance is going to determine whether you move into the ego desire or you move on to step 3, is just that acceptance. And it could be a semi or a short-lived acceptance, which again is still a win, right? If you can accept it and be with that for half an hour, 15 minutes, half an hour, and not take action on whatever it is that you wanted, and be with the thoughts, be with whatever the intolerance was that you were coming up with. You could journal on it. You could just think about it, reflect on it, consider how you could nourish yourself, right? Thinking about all those things. And then you decide, okay, I've thought about it. I recognize it. I'm working with it. And today I'm still going to have the ego desire. That is real work. Like that's beautiful work to be done. Because as someone that's lived this, right, again and again, having the same thing that I don't want to be having again and again and again for years, literally years, right? It's a practice of recognizing how it's not serving you, how it is serving you, those pros and cons, figuring out the alternatives that could serve you, all of that, it matters. And so this isn't an overnight solution, but the point is that it's a long-term solution that will bring you more joy and more nourishment on a deep level, more holistically. We're not putting a Band-Aid on, giving you rules to follow someone else's diet, and then you're going to do that for a period of time, maybe for the rest of your life. But often chances are you're going to fall on and off the wagon, and it might be years before you get back on, if ever. And how much do you actually learn about yourself and what you truly want and what you're avoiding by just following these rules that someone else gave you? So the third step, after you accept what is, then recognizing what's the true hunger. What is the deeper desire that you want? And that, again, is going to be this reflective period that you might put a few minutes in towards it the first couple times, and then you might sit with it longer and longer each time that it comes up for you. And I'm also recognizing that there can be multiple things here, multiple preferences that you have. You know, at a certain time of the day, it's one thing. At another time, it's a different thing. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's something else. And so there might be multiple things that you know are not serving you, and you know are ways to escape from one or more things that you don't want to feel. And it could also be not just something you don't want to feel, but it might be a way that you don't like being. And it might be a bad habit / you know, just this characteristic that you'd rather grow out of or learn to do things differently. Or it might be an aspect of you that isn't going to go away, or at least not in the, you know, this world we're in. You might have to do some dispenser work to get it to go away. But it's a part of you that you're not liking, you're not accepting. And so you're avoiding any thoughts around that, of you just literally not accepting yourself as you are. And then the fourth step is recognizing, after you recognize that desire, that soul desire, the true hunger, how can you feed that soul desire? How can you nourish yourself that it's going to feed the hunger that you're feeling? And I would recommend coming up with multiple ways. Tony Robbins says whenever he has to make a decision, he never leaves himself with two options. There's always a third option. So I'd recommend, for similar reasons, always having at least 3 options. Because two can feel, one option puts you in a bind. It's you know, there's only one solution, and that can lead to immediate sadness if there's only one option. And so seeing even the craving as the one option and not recognizing other ways puts you in that state of sadness, depression. But as soon as you see there's another option, it lightens things up. But you also don't want to have just 2 options where it's one or the other. It's an ultimatum. So that's where the third option is helpful. And it kind of opens your mind up, so then you can start thinking more creatively and come up with even more options that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise, and maybe some overlapping, an overlapping solution. So then, of course, taking action on that, what you recognize to be nourishing to your highest self, to feeding that desire that you have to take action on it. And sometimes this action might be a multi-step process. It might take a longer time. But if you can take immediate action to start fulfilling it, that's what you want, because that immediate action is going to give you some reward, right? It's going to give you a little bit of the dopamine, and often the other, some of the other hormones that you want as well, neurotransmitters and hormones, to make you feel the way you want to feel. right? What I didn't include in this booklet, which I forgot as I was focused on this exercise, was recognizing the sweet versus the savory desires. If it's more of a sweet or a savory, because as I was just saying, even you taking a little bit of action with that, the nourishment that is going to feed your deeper soul desire, you take a little bit of that action, it's going to produce the dopamine. You just going towards that action is going to produce the dopamine, which will make you feel good for a little bit. But it's also going to produce either serotonin and oxytocin, where it makes you feel more comforted, loved, at peace, maybe more GABA. Or if it's something where it's more adventurous, you're planning a trip, to getaway, to take, give yourself some alone time or just some adventure with a partner, that would be more stimulating. And that would give you more of the glutamate and the dopamine, maybe some endorphins that you would get if you went for a run, right? Or even going for a run would be amazing. So those feelings that you're creating are not the same based on, just this number 4, fulfilling your soul desire. Those feelings that you're going to get are based on what your soul desire is and what the nourishing piece is. Now, if your soul desires connection, it could look a lot of different ways. It could be soothing or it could be stimulating. So you might want to think about that when you have those soul desires, in what, like, a big desire for me is connection. But in this moment, what's the hunger for? Is it more of a very intimate connection, or is it more of this like philosophical connection? Like I want to be pondering the universe, our existence here. I want to be out in nature. Or is it like I want to be in a bubble bath, just loving myself? Right? So this could look all different ways. But the more clear you get about the intolerance and the preference that you started with, and then the deeper soul desire and true hunger, the more you can nourish yourself in a way that is very, very fulfilling, satisfying, rewarding. Okay? Make sense? Josie, you're all cuddled up. You're making me want to.
I feel like this is way over my head for some reason. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. This just feels hard.
Maybe it's a time like this call is a time for mostly reflection. Okay. Just to take it in that first time. Because often we hear things like, how many times have you heard from a friend or a total stranger about doing something? And you're like, I've never heard that before. That's so strange. And then someone else tells you and you're like, someone just told me that. That's so interesting. And blow it off. And then a third, fourth person tell you and you're like, maybe I should look into this, right? So just because it feels a little bit over your head, it might be where you are right now. You look very comforting. You don't look like you're in a place to really dig in and do some work. And that's okay.
I'm just trying to absorb.
Yeah, exactly. You showed up. So you're not ignoring the inner work at all. Okay, so we'll have you can share, Josie, but you'll go last. How about that? Give you some time. Lynn, do you want to share anything? We'll go through a preference that you have. Then
yeah, I'm feeling like I need another
example. I was
walking through another example.
Okay.
If you have another one.
Yes. Okay. So a preference for me. I'm going to make this about food. Specifically food, because first of all, that's like what brought us all together. And it's something we encounter 3 times a day. And there's a lot of nuances that I recognize being on this journey for so long myself and really loving flavor. So if I want a something, I might want something savory, like a stir fry. That's my preference. And this might be too foodie, but that's my preference, is the stir fry. And I know it's going to make my mouth water. It's going to be so umami, delicious, right? The intolerance, this is actually turning out to be really good. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but the intolerance here is me not having that stimulating effect, not being with this super rewarding meal. But it's bigger than that. Like, that's what I'm not going to have if I don't choose it. But it's bigger than that, because what I know is going to happen if I continue to make the better choices is that my body is going to heal. So this is, I mean, that is a really big deal, because what comes with healing? Like, if you truly heal, there's so much more potential and growth on the other side. And by not healing, you have a lot of excuses. You have a lot of reasons to not do something. So for me, that's just coming up immediately. It also means like less stimulation, more of the foods that would not offer that deep umami savoriness would be more peace, like with what is, just more calmness, more neutrality, which is really interesting, because I want connection, I want love, right? And that's kind of those feelings, that deep sense of love it generally comes with more peace, more happiness, more soothing. And it's the opposite of what I'm wanting with my food. Does that make sense? And do you see how crazy in just this step one, all we've done is, I mean, I've kind of jumped to step 3 too, I guess, but how deep you can go and how meaningful this reflection can be. Like, that all literally just came up for me as brand new information. I mean, pieces I've known before, which I've even mentioned here before, but putting it together in the way that I just did, of recognizing I want the savoriness and I'm resistant to deeper healing, but it also is like this not being calm enough to be with someone, to be present. Does that make sense? Do you see how the nervous system is such a strong link between the flavor that we're consuming and the experiences in our daily life? Like, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it, especially being able to verbalize it. Like, I want to write a book that would connect these things, and it's so complicated. I'm not even, it's hard to explain just here. But is that helpful, Lynn? Because
Yeah, I still don't know.
okay, so
I
let me
still
break
don't know
it
where-
down with the homework though.
Okay.
For the chart that we have. So the preference is the savory meal, right? Let me grab this. Then the true hunger. So I could have actually, it would have helped if I would have put the 4th category in here of the intolerance. So the preference was the savory meal. The intolerance, I'll just label as being calm, like calming the nervous system, because that has multiple meanings, right? From the healing aspect to the intimate part. Then the true hunger that I'm wanting with the savoriness is, initially I would see it as this umami. And so now I'm making it a little bit more complicated, but all of our lives are so different. So this is what we need to do, is recognizing it, because The preference I'm wanting is the savoriness, but what I'm avoiding is the opposite of the stimulation. And that's why I want that stimulating thing. I'm avoiding the soothing, calming thing. So that's where it's a little bit like a little bit of detective work to figure out what you're truly hungry for. Because in this case, what I'm truly hungry for is not necessarily this big adventure, like it's not the savoriness in my life. It's that thing that I'm avoiding that I actually do want. It's just I'm scared of it for whatever reason, for multiple reasons, depending on which angle we're looking at. But that true hunger is being fully at peace. And I'm avoiding the foods and the flavor that's going to give me that peace. Now, I'm not avoiding it. That's not true. But that's what my ego is doing, right? Because I did want that. I'm taking this from a real life example tonight. That's what I wanted, was a stir fry. What did I choose to have instead? I chose a raw pizza, which is, it's still it's still savoriness, but it was a raw pizza, so it's cold. And the crust was made of chia seeds and flax seeds and vegetables. And then on top, there was a little bit of a cashew sauce and tomatoes, lettuce, olives, red bell pepper, right? So still delicious, but it wasn't my first choice. It wasn't what I really would have loved. The way that I got to that, though, that's the nourishing piece, is by doing this work. Even though I didn't recognize those two pieces going together, what I do recognize I've been very focused on is my healing. And so I think about the deeper desire of wanting that peace in my body. My body doesn't want more stimulation. My body wants lots of fresh living foods to cleanse the body. It wants less stimulating, savory foods that are going to create inflammation in the body. So I also think about it wanting the healthy omega-3 fats to reduce inflammation. And I think about it wanting a little less, like not getting too much sugar to reduce the inflammation and to not feed anything that's, there. It could be parasites or bugs or whatever. So all of those pieces go into what's going to nourish me. And I didn't choose a mango, which I would have also loved. And sometimes I do choose a mango, but that wasn't an option. Just having a raw mango. And just a piece of fruit wouldn't satisfy me enough. It wouldn't have been fulfilling enough for me to choose that. So I came up with the raw pizza option. If I wasn't hungry, this is dinner time, but if I wasn't hungry, what I could have had a tea instead, or I could have gone for a walk. Right? There's different ways that you can go about it. Even if the food is the thing you're wanting, the food might not be the thing that, because actually, 2 hours before, I did want the food, whatever it was, whether it was the pizza or the stir fry, I wanted food, but I recognized I wasn't hungry. And instead I went to the gym. And so that for me was rewarding in multiple levels. Like it was stimulating and got my mind, kind of woke me up instead of having to take a nap, but it also made me feel good. Right. And it strengthened my body. It strengthened my immune system, strengthened my mind, all these different pieces. So when you're thinking about what's going to be nourishing, the more you are understanding your soul's desires, the more effective you're going to be able to nourish yourself. Because my soul desire is not just the connection. It's not just the delicious food. It's not just healing. I want to be strong, vital, my most vibrant self. right? I want to have a clear mind. I want to have a strong, healthy body that's flexible, and I want all these different pieces. So what's going to nourish me the best to fulfill all those different pieces, right? Makes sense? I'll give you one more, again, from my date this morning. My preference was to sleep in. Intolerance would have been intolerance to discipline, to growth, to being consistent, to showing up for myself. Once that starts happening, it gets harder not to show up for yourself. So the preference was to sleep in and not go for a meditation. But my true hunger is this metamorphosis for myself, this becoming the person I really visualize myself being. That's the hunger. And that's what got me out of bed this morning, 4:30 in the morning. By the way, my desire to be up that early is to be on the beach with no one else and to still be at a coffee shop working or getting started with my day by 7. So there is, again, the deeper you go into your desires and what you're wanting, the deeper you go into your nourishment, the more effective it's going to be, because you think about all the different pieces of your life and making them all fit like a puzzle. And so the nourishment that I did was doing the meditation, getting out of bed. And when I got back, I laid down. I laid down for half an hour after the meditation before I went. And I actually postponed. I knew the gym was a non-negotiable, but instead of doing the gym before I went to do my work this morning, right after the meditation, I laid down and then I made the gym happen this afternoon. Right. So you don't have to be this, like a dictator in your life, right? You don't have to be that discipline where it's punishment. You want to create discipline that's supportive to you. Okay. Does that help now with this little exercise? And you can always plug in the intolerance. I'm thinking I will I'll make it again with the intolerance here, because I think that is helpful. Ooh. Okay. So Lynn, do you want to start us off?
I don't know. Maybe you can help me figure it out.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm kind of in a little bit of a chaotic time in my life right now. This is probably not typical of most of this year, but we had a grandchild born and 4 weeks early, and they have 2 other children that are about to turn 3 and 4. So 3 really little ones. And so I've been jumping in to help with that a lot, and work is put aside. And my life has just not been the typical routine.
Yeah.
So I have found myself struggling with 2 things, but kind of curious why am I going for that? One is wanting to make nice cream every day, and the other is wanting to make popcorn every day that's made in the microwave. So it's not oil popcorn, but you know, I'm going, okay, why am I?
Do you
doing
want them at the same time, or is this like 2 separate?
No, it's
days?
different times.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I'm sure there's some good reasons, and you can help me figure out what they are.
Yeah. So give me one, like the time of the day when you're wanting the ice cream, is that earlier in the day?
That's usually, it's usually my go-to around 2:30 or 3. But sometimes if I want to have it and I've eaten really well with everything else, I might have it at the end of lunch, just to not be eating outside of meals, kind of thing. So it could be either or there. Often if I've had a work day that's been really physical and I come home, that's what I want when I come home. before, and that might be like at 4 o'clock or something like that.
Okay.
Um, it's like comforting. It's usually the chocolate and ice cream with cacao powder. So it gives me a little stimulation maybe.
Yes.
And popcorn is often more like later. Like normally I don't eat after dinner, but lately with all the chaos, I've wanted popcorn. It's like it's a soothing kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
So with the ice cream, is there anything that you can recognize as an intolerance? Thing that you're not wanting to be with? Because I mean, we often think of like what we're going towards, but if you're going towards that, what do you leave? What are you going away from?
Maybe the transition for what I need to do next. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Um,
I'm gonna have to
that
stop
could be a
and think
real
about it.
thing, just the transition, kind of distraction from moving on to the next thing.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, maybe it has the same effect as going for a walk, where it just resets me.
mhm.
I'm not sure.
What was your lunch? Or
What's that?
what's your lunch tend to be?
Lunches tend to be often things that I have made ahead of time that are in the freezer. Most of the time, soups and salads and things like that.
Okay, so neither of those are immediately coming off as sweet items,
Right. They're not for
right? So
lunch.
they're more of that savoriness. And so
Mhm.
that offers your mind, and actually it's a good time to have savory foods. So especially like the soup, the middle of the day when your mind has a lot more work to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not giving you the kind of peace, the here and now neurotransmitters. It's not giving you this like loving, comforting feeling,
Yeah.
right? Savory lunches and dinners, unless it's a meal with other people, or somehow you made the presentation be extra meaningful to you, right? It doesn't offer that sweetness.
Right.
So that's something that's like, it might feel like you're wanting the sweetness in that moment,
Mhm.
because you're missing it, like you're just literally wanting more, or you're wanting more stimulation, like sugar stimulation, more of that, like immediate dopamine, even
Yeah.
go into the next thing.
Mhm.
Like you're the thing itself that needs to be done is not offering dopamine, because we're avoiding it, right? In general, when we're distracting ourselves, we don't want to go towards whatever that thing is.
Mhm.
And so you're almost creating this, you're not creating it's a distraction, and it's offering the dopamine. So it's pulling you in the other direction.
Hmm.
But it's like, for me, sometimes it feels, if I feel more love and more sweetness, even if it's from a food or a drink, I might feel more prepared to go into whatever I don't want to do. It's almost like taking a best friend with me.
Yeah.
Like you've got this, you had your sweetness, and now you feel the love to go into whatever it is. The thing with the cacao too is that it literally opens up your heart chakra,
Mhm.
your energy center. So does wine. Both of them energize, they open up your arteries. So they help improve blood flow, and that gets more energy to your heart. And so we
Hmm.
feel more loving.
Hmm.
So the issue with and based on how you said it when you first shared these preferences, is that it's every day,
Right.
right? Because these are foods that are nourishing in general. It's the mind chatter that's the most bother of why you need them, and you kind of coming back to them every day.
Yeah.
So if you come up with recognizing, you can think on it more, the true hunger piece of it, sit with the different things that we talked about and see what resonates most with you. If maybe it's all of it, maybe one's more strong than the other. And then how do you nourish instead? If you create, want to have 3 options, you could say that the nice cream is one option, but what are 2 other ways, at least 2 other ways that you could nourish?
Yes.
Give yourself that, based on what you feel is the biggest reason that you're going towards that. If it's like the sweetness, this connection, a best friend, could it be a phone call to a loved one?
Mm-hmm.
Or like you said, a walk in nature? Would that be, also it could be, like you said, giving yourself a reset where you have that break. And it could be that where you're like, I need some alone time. I need some love myself.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing so much, you have so much stress happening.
Right.
And
That
it's
makes
like
sense.
we want a reward when we're going through so much work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in the evening, it could be a similar thing, but it also might be, or in addition, it's a warm item. So it's even more soothing in that way, comforting. And it could be getting you almost ready for bed.
Yeah. Not the best option, probably.
It's not as special. Think about it this way too. Neither of those treats are as meaningful if they happen every day.
True. True.
So you can recognize it as not just like, I don't want to be having these every day from a limiting standpoint, but also I cherish these so much. I want them to mean something when I have them. There's a reason they're nostalgic. Just throwing it in there that they're nostalgic for you.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to be more nostalgic if there's a meaning that's kept with them. If they're had every day, they don't have the same meaning.
True.
Right?
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome. So who wants to share? I don't know. Kathy, are you available? I think looks like you might be moving around a little bit.
Well, I'm prepping vegetables, so I'm
Good for you.
delivery, and I prep them for like my morning veggies. And I don't know, I'm not really, I haven't read the PDF, and I missed the first coach call, and so I'm just kind of absorbing and not.
Yeah. Welcome to your first call. I'm so glad you're joining us.
Yeah.
And the prepping is important. And we have busy lives, so it's nice that you're able to do that. At the same time, I would encourage you to print the PDF off and watch the replay when you have time.
Yeah, I can't print right now, but
well, then you can do it on your computer, but you can also do it on paper. Just write it out. It's really simple exercise, but that'll be all of our calls are going to build on each other. There'll be individual practices, but like I'm referring back to soul desire today, right? That's what we talked about in the last training. So you want to make sure that you're watching all of them, and even better if you're doing the exercises, because then you'll have more of an understanding of yourself to move on to the next one.
That's great. Yep.
I'm good. Okay. Thanks, Kathy. Tom, are you there? See, you've gotten on and off a little bit, so you might have not the best connection, or you might be busy with something as well. Josie, I'm going to leave it up to you.
Okay, so I was kind of listening and thinking and trying to pull some things into perspective. So let me just take one example that I have, and it's just like something that's developed over probably the last 6 to 8 months, I literally always have a problem getting to sleep. Okay. So I I don't know why. I've tried meds to try and get me to sleep, but they don't work. And so I just don't use them. And so I lay there and I watch TV and I start to fall asleep. So then I turn the TV off and it's like, bing, I'm wide awake. And I'll lay there for like 30 minutes trying to get myself to sleep. And it doesn't happen. So I turn the TV back on and I start watching TV a little bit more. And then it's like I start thinking about food. And I'm like, this is like probably 1 o'clock in the morning. And I would have had like dinner around 6 o'clock. So I don't really feel like I'm hungry, but I can't get, I'm like trying to think now, what can I eat? Because I don't want it to be crunchy because my husband's sleeping. So I go through this thing in my mind. So I usually go and get 6 Ritz crackers and I bring them back in bed and I lay there and I just, put like half of it in my mouth and let it kind of dissolve. And I swallow it. And then I took the other half. I go through like 6 of them. And then in like 15 minutes, I'm asleep. It's like, it works for me every single time. And I don't know why. It's bizarre. But I'm like,
It is a bizarre treat that
Yeah.
puts you to sleep like that.
yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know, it like calms my mind or I don't get it. It's just funky stuff like that I go through. And it's probably, I want to say it's once a week, probably, that I can, and I never know what night, it's weird.
Okay. One sec. Interesting. So, okay, let's break down your evening. You have
Okay.
dinner on average around 6 o'clock, you say?
Yep. Usually around 6. Yeah.
Okay. And then what after dinner?
After dinner, my husband and we just watch TV.
Okay.
We don't. And this year he's had some surgeries and stuff. And so, but normally we're here just watching TV. That's what we do in the evening. And then I always go to bed around 10.
So are you watching TV downstairs?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go upstairs to go to bed, but is the TV in your room as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's
And
the
I
one you would turn on.
Yeah, and then I turn that on to help me get to sleep.
Okay.
And sometimes I do fall asleep.
Do you ever watch TV up there together or like as your nighttime?
Yeah, because after I get in bed, then he comes to bed.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're in bed together, and
So
he falls asleep
common
like
for you
that.
to watch TV together in bed.
Yeah, but he normally falls asleep right away.
Right away. What do you have for dinner usually?
Just like a meat, potato, and vegetable, pretty much.
Is it a meat? Like a typical meat? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Meat, potatoes. Do you do
And
a lot
vegetables.
of sauces?
A lot of sauces.
Yeah, like a savory sauce with the meat or like
No.
seasonings? No? Okay, so
No.
simpler. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom, for letting me know before I continue with Josie. I'm guessing the problem you have with the visual is on your end. You can hear me. I don't know if you can see me, but we will just connect with you next time then if you can't take your sound isn't working. And I will get you the PDF here in the chat. But I know you had an issue with the Dropbox. So if you're still not able to access it, then I'll send it another way. You can also log into the course website and it's already posted in the integration guide on the course website. Okay. So Josie, there's a book called Why We Sleep. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's fantastic. If you like science, if you like having a lot of understanding of why things happen, you will love it. As a Pilates instructor,
Oh,
you
there
will
she
love
got
it.
it.
Oh yeah. good.
Okay.
Because you can share it with your people.
Mhm.
There's a lot to having really great sleep and having a good night's sleep. The first thing that is generally the reason most people in our society have a hard time sleeping is, any idea? It's probably the most
Not
common
probably
issue.
not being busy enough during the day and carrying yourself out.
Yeah. Well, if that's coming up for you, that would definitely help you. Like even for myself, since I started working out every day, it's helping me have a better sleep. But the one I was going to say is the screen time. The blue light right before bed is activating the mind. It's the opposite of what we are seeing from an evolutionary standpoint. Usually we have blue light only during the day from the sun,
Okay.
in the middle of the day. And then it gets more red as the day goes on. And then it becomes like the sun's gone and all we have is fire.
Okay.
So in that situation, the fire is a sign from the sun setting to a firelight or candle. It's telling the brain like it's time for bed. And the book would go into a lot of the neurotransmitters, but you're producing the melatonin in general is the number one thing for sleep. The blue screen, I think it blocks the melatonin, but also the blue screen is going to be creating, stimulating glutamate, which gets your nervous system more wired up and your mind going. So based on those two things alone, there's a total shift in the way your neurotransmitters, your hormones are, that is making it so it's hard to sleep. So right off the bat, that would be one way to set yourself up for success, is to turn off the screen earlier and don't use it as like an alternative to sleeping when you want to be sleeping. And it will take a little bit to get out of the pattern, and your nervous system is used to that. But even, if nothing else, when you first aren't able to go to sleep, instead of turning on the screen, go eat those 6 Ritz crackers and go to sleep a couple hours earlier.
Yeah.
Right? That could be the first solution.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to have them either way, you might as well do it earlier and get a better sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
ahead.
I'm going to tell you a couple more things.
Okay.
The book will go into more details, like an eye mask in a dark room and all these other things that would help with sleep. But from a food standpoint, our body is going to goes through cycles of wanting food, and cycles of our like leptin and ghrelin, all these things. And so if you're up past a certain hour, you're going to want food again. Your body is going to be utilizing energy, and so it's going to require more energy. But it's also designed to have an increase, as like a spike in energy, to do the repair, to do the healing. So you want to be in bed, like asleep by a certain time, so that increase in energy is not like, oh, I can stay up for a few more hours. It's like, let the body repair. The last thing is, I just looked up Ritz crackers for sleep. And it spikes your blood sugar and insulin, which would make you think that it's not good for sleep, which in the, big picture, it's not. But that immediate increase in your blood flow is apparently supportive to getting a good night's sleep, like makes you more sleepy.
Okay.
So
it's like a mini sugar crash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's white. Ritz crackers are white flour.
Yeah.
It's like sugar.
Yeah.
So if you were going to do something like that, I would buy some crackers. One solution is some crackers that are better quality. Then at least you have like some good organic grain there.
Right.
gluten-free ideally. Or you could have a piece of fruit or even dried fruit is just alternatives. But
Okay.
the best solution would be to not have a hard time going to sleep.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I feel like you might want to tell us another preference. Is that the case, or is there like a different issue?
Mhm. Well, I was just looking at it like, why was I wanting like the food at
Yeah.
like 2 in the morning? And you kind of explained that a little
It's
bit,
a lot of
like,
physiology.
because it's like hours have gone by. Yeah.
But what I wanted
But
to get to is, why are you avoiding the sleep?
um
So, and this might not
I
be
don't,
around your awareness right now,
yeah.
but we're going toward, you're watching all this TV. And sometimes it's a like fantastic show that you have to, that you love. You've got, maybe an attachment, maybe not, doesn't matter. If it's a show you're really liking. Often though, especially if there's TV for a couple hours, it's just a default almost. It's
Mhm.
just, there's something on, it's something to do. When you go to sleep, your body's healing. Not only is it healing and repairing the body that you deeply admire, right? From
Yeah.
just the work you do with Pilates, I know you care about the body.
Right.
But also it's a time for all of the memories to be formed. You do not learn long-term information during the day. You actually, or you don't store it to memory during the day. You store it in your memory at nighttime. You have to be asleep for that to happen. It also clears out plaque of your brain when you sleep so that you can be more clear the next day and make better food choices along with everything else. And the last piece is, which is something no one would have thought of, myself included, until I did the work that is for this program, is that we are creating our lives while we are sleeping. And this is more effective depending on how much intention you put behind it. But we go to bed with a subconscious mind, right? And that subconscious mind is doing a lot of work based on everything we experience during the day, but also any intentions we have before we go to bed at night. So I think about my sleep as this sacred time, not just for healing the body, but actually for kind of seeding what I want to happen. Seeding the dreams that I have that are not just dreams, but why do we even talk about it like that? Like they're dreams in our head that we go to bed at night, but they're also the dreams that we're wanting to bring forth into the world. And yet we're not actually believing that they're so deeply connected. But they are if we want them to be. They are regardless, but even more so if we have that intention. So if you want a reason to turn the screen off earlier, I want to just put this out there as a reason, not just for your body, for your physical, mental health, but also for anything that to have that creative power within yourself and be able to have fun, like creating, and you go to bed like just with this excitement for this cherished time that often we don't want to get out of bed because we love it so much, but then we're resistant to getting into bed or we put it off, right?
Yeah.
And that TV is really giving us a lot of hormones or a lot of neurotransmitters, a lot of stimulation and flavor. And everything flavor from the like bitter dark stuff, which some people really appreciate. I know my dad likes watching what are the movies like Kidnap Stories, this crazy, like,
Yeah.
why don't you put
Like,
that in your head? All the way to the most fun, exciting dramas and mysteries and all the different stuff. So you got a ton of flavor there. And your mind is like wanting more and more. Where it's like, and based on your past with us and sharing how it's like this go-go energy instead of being more at peace. Just, you know, even for myself, in some ways, I've had to calm myself down, and I keep slowly cutting back and reducing the things that are not serving me. And so it's not this all or nothing, but could you take a little bit, you know, time before going to bed? So I want to leave it, I want to turn it over to you. Is there something for you that feels like it could be nourishing? Like, because
Yeah,
recognizing the true hunger is a better quality sleep. Is that, or is there something else?
well, it's kind of like, that's kind of like, it's hard to explain, kind of, but
Try.
it's kind of like my me time for the TV when I go to bed at 10 o'clock.
It's your what time?
Me time, my me time,
Mm-hmm.
when I go to bed at 10 o'clock and turn on that TV. It's,
Mm.
and
Then
and
when
so
your husband's watching with you.
yeah, okay. So, and I do find that soothing. Okay.
Mhm.
And a lot of the times the shows that I'm watching are shows that are really not stimulating because I intentionally want to go to sleep. Okay. So, you know, um, sometimes they are. I mean, it depends, but it's just, I don't know. It's,
No, that's very helpful. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
no, but it's, and I just struggle as to the other piece of it. You know, when I do when I feel myself falling asleep and I turn the TV off, I lay there and then the monkey chatter starts. I get this monkey chatter going on. Okay. And it keeps me up. And then I put the TV back on to quiet my monkey chatter. It's a vicious cycle.
What if that monkey chatter was just trying to keep your nervous system at a homeostasis? Because you had the monkey chatter coming in from the TV and your nervous system was like complying with it. It was balancing the TV by calming itself.
Yeah.
And you turn the TV off, and then it's like
then
that.
it flares up.
Yeah, because it's used to that stimulation. So it's just trying to keep a balance.
Yeah.
But also that TV was stimulating, even though you were getting tired, it was stimulating. So I hear you, the beautiful piece that you recognized is that this time was for yourself. This was like your alone time.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful. So there's a couple things that you could think about, bringing in more alone time earlier in the day, finding a time, or and it might not be every day, maybe during the week. I would say this is really important. If it's not every day, to have that time during the week, but also maybe this is a perfect time for you to have that alone time in your bed without the TV. You could just pick up a book and read, you know, something nonfiction that would also put you to sleep. Or sorry, fiction, not nonfiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or poem book, a poetry book. That's what I started reading recently.
And I have tried the book thing, and it is weird because that's another thing where I read a page and I'm like falling asleep, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta reread that page now.
But if the intention is to go to sleep, then don't worry about reading.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
a lost soul when it comes to this. I'm like,
No.
I'm my own worst enemy. And you know what? I wasn't like that until after I went through menopause, in all honesty. And it's weird how something shifted. And I was like that before I retired. After I went through menopause, I was still working, and then got even worse because it's 3 a.m. and I got to get up at 5 o'clock to get ready for work, you know? So it's just, I don't know. I know what you're
think there's
saying.
something deeper, and I don't think you're a lost soul. I think
All right.
you have a soul that wants to be more connected to itself. I feel like that's the work that we're here to do.
Yeah.
Is like that connection and having this growth period. The book, what you said to me, just my initial, perspective is like, that's a way, and because I recognize it because I've done it, right? Is that it's a justification for that not being a good solution.
Yeah.
Right. So the book didn't work, and it's easy to go back to the TV.
Yeah.
Versus, you could get out of bed and you could do stretches on the floor, on the ground. You could have a bath an hour before at 9 o'clock. Or you could go for a walk outside, or even before, after dinner, you could go for a walk outside with the sunset, which that in itself would help with the sleep circadian rhythm. I think I heard somewhere that watching the sunset actually helps displace some of the effect of a TV in the evening.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not going to cure the TV issue, but if it could displace a little impact.
Well, I just live with a partner that has the TV on all the time.
Yeah.
So I live with that all the time. And we've had discussions about that, but it's not.
So does that serve you, that statement?
I don't know what you actually mean by that, if it serves me, but
because I say a lot about my family. So I see when I go home, I say that my dad has the TV on all the time, and it's true. And there's the initial thought is like, if it was my partner or a dad, I would hope that I could talk about it and that behavior change would happen. But that's not the case. We can't change other people.
It doesn't.
Absolutely not. So the alternative, I could continue suffering in that every time I go home, because my mom's in the same position. She can't stand it either. Or we find another solution. And in the process, also finding another way to frame the statement. So that's where I meant, does that statement serve you? Because it's putting something in your head of like, it's outside of your control and you're suffering because of it, which I totally understand. What if my partner watches TV all the time, and think about how you could frame that differently. But if the outcome was that you get some alone time that you want, you cherish that alone time. If you got between 8 and 10, you had all this alone time to do something you wanted to do, or between 7 and 9, if there's a show in there that you really want to watch. And also if you want to honor that time to connect with him, because sometimes as much as you want to avoid it, like my mom, for him, it's a time for connection, which is painful when there's not a communication about it, right? And there's such a disconnect. But when I say that statement, does it serve you? Just recognizing that our lives are based on our realities, based on our personality, vice versa. We can't change him, but we can change what's happening for us. So you can change your experience in the evening, and that you could leverage that situation for your benefit.
And I have done some of that, that's why I got into Pilates stuff so much. I mean, we have a very small space, so my Pilates equipment is right here in the living room where he watches TV. So I'm doing somersaults in front of him as he's watching TV. So it's just, And at our age, I mean, he's had 2 hip replacements now, May and November. So, he's had some restrictions. And so, I'm sensitive to that. But your whole dreams, just, dreams when you go to bed and you dream. I mean, it's at our age, what do you dream? You dream about, it's like, because you have your life.
I think
Your
that's
your life's behind you. So much of
Mm.
your life is behind you. And I've learned so much throughout my life where, okay, I know I don't want to do that because I don't want that stress in my life anymore. I've smartened up enough. And so it's just, I'm just in a
we're gonna talk,
weird
we're gonna
place.
talk more about honoring
Okay.
the decadence that we want in November. We're gonna talk a lot about that.
Okay.
But I wanted you guys to tap into this energy, and so I'm glad you brought it up. And what do you dream about? Because it's not the lack of power within yourself to control the food cravings. It's a lack of something that fulfills us enough
Mhm.
to not have some bigger hunger to go for.
Yeah. And I'm seeing that over the last 2 weeks it's like, okay, now I understand. When I was working, there were certain times where I'd have to be working on a computer and eating pretzels and drinking a Coke because that was brain fuel for me. I was a stress eater.
Yeah.
Okay. So you helped me see some of that. But I don't have that. I'm not working anymore. So I don't have that stress eating anymore. But
Can
I'm
your
trying to,
husband walk? Like, because you had mentioned the hip injuries. I don't know how.
he will be able to
Okay.
afterwards. He should be able to.
So just gonna put a little seed that maybe you dream
Mhm.
about things that you could do for fun together
Okay.
instead of the TV.
Yeah.
Maybe that for him, that's the go-to because there's not another option. Because
Yeah.
he's also like you, not that there couldn't be, but he has no idea what it would.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe some of those nights, or maybe every other night, you could work on your quilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I got my backing for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all together. I got my backing now. So I have to get the whole piece quilted together. And then I got to put the border around it and it'll be done. So yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Good.
I'm gonna hold it up one of these times.
Yes.
Yeah, you can hold it up partway through. Show us
Yeah.
your progress. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining me and Tom. And the homework for anyone listening to the replay is really meaningful. Like you saw in the calls, I think the examples I went through myself and Lynn and Josie, thank you for sharing. We did some meaningful work with those in, and we just talked about, I think one preference for each of us, or maybe technically two with Lynn, but similar situation. And there's so many preferences in our lives, a lot of food and a lot of other things, that if we were to go through and notice the true hunger that's there and how can we deeply nourish ourselves, what change is possible, what growth is possible, right? What the end for me is us being our most vibrant self. How much more can we really thrive and shine our light and help empower other people? Because that's what it's really about. Me empowering you is about you being able to empower others, which can look many different ways, but it's you shining, which just by its very nature, your light helps others, right? So it's not like you have to go teach, although you actually both want to. But yeah, so that's connecting to that deeper why we're doing this, right? Kathy, nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Tom, for being here too. And I will let you all have a beautiful evening. Well, not that I'll let you, but I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to have a delicious evening myself. And we will talk on Monday for coaching 3 or training 3, if you can join us. And the replay for this call will be in the course site and on Facebook. And you can find all of the replays in both of those spots, so whichever one works for you at any time. Okay, good night.
Okay.
You all.
Night.
Bye.